Welcome everyone to yet another edition of Drunk Agile. So excited. It's always, so Drunk Agile is always special, but it's extra special when we have probably our favorite guest. I shouldn't say, why am I qualifying that?
Why are you saying probably?
Why? He is our favorite guest. Johanna Rothman, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you. And we have to tell people how I got to be your favorite guest, because I'm so shy and retiring.
Yeah. We really have to draw you out of your shell.
Yeah.
I know it's
yeah. No other guest actually sends you an email and says, you need to do a video on this because I need to figure it out.
Yeah, and we were just talking about, we just feel extra prepared when we have you on because you've already sent us everything you're going to talk about. So meanwhile, Dan and I have no idea. We usually just sit back and
we just sit back. I'm gonna put my legs up here and go ahead, Joanna. Right. All right, that hurt actually. In case anyone's wondering, that really hurt. Do you want to explain your SPY size very quickly? Johanna, do you want to?
So these are brand new glasses. I just picked them up yesterday. So I have the weird, so they have the coating on them, which we need, right? We always need whatever coating the eye doctor gives us. But I think I look really weird. So here's me without my glasses. My eyes are normal, but I do want to see you, so I'll leave them on.
Yeah. We tried to tell her. I think she looks really cool.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Yeah. It's like very, very topical with the release of Dune, the blue eyes.
Yeah. So in our excitement, we forgot to introduce the star of the show. Of course, everybody plays second fiddle to Nisha over there somewhere. Very quickly, Prateek, what are you drinking? Are you drinking anything? What are you drinking?
Are you drinking anything?
I'm drinking.
Okay, in that case, I am drinking as well.
Just happen to have something here.
just by chance, I have something right on my desk. I've got the Aberfeldy that you brought me last time from Scotland, not this time, but last time. So that's the secret, people. Dan goes to Scotland and brings me Scotch. It's 57.7% Aberfeldy. I think this was a bourbon cask.
No, it's virgin oak. It's actually virgin oak.
Oh, it's virgin oak. Yeah, this is virgin oak. So
yeah, there you go. So it was bottled straight from the cask, and Prateek goes, "There's stuff in it." Yeah. Anyway, I have an Akantoshan that I've been working on. Oh yeah, I suppose you kind of spoiler alert. In the coming episodes, we are going to be debuting a whole bunch of whiskeys that I brought back. But Akantoshan 19-year-old 52.4% sherry cask. So cheers, everybody. Johanna, there's your water. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
0%.
It's 100% water.
All right, let's tee it up. Who would like to go? What are we talking about? Who knows what we're talking about?
So let me set it up for Johanna, and after that you take it off, and we are just sitting back. So Johanna, you sent us an email a little while ago talking about how Dan and I have been talking a lot about aging and aging of work items, and as things flow through the system, how those work items age and what to do about it or how to monitor it, all those fun things. But you want to take the discussion to the next level, the more bigger discussion, as we said before, and that's what we would love to hear. What is this more bigger discussion around aging?
So I was thinking of it in several dimensions. The first is the defect and the defect tracking and all of the culture around defects and needing to know where they are. And I see way too many Agile teams doing defect triage meetings. I don't understand that, except they have this, the only word I have for it is a warehouse, a library, this enormous backlog of defects. So when I worked recently with a client and I said, how long have you had these defects? And they said, oh, it goes back 10 years, right? This is a 10-year-old product. And I said, I have a deal for you. Copy that, put it someplace on a disk drive, or even better, a tape, and never look at it again. And if you have anything, somebody reports that you know was there, put it into a new system, and then don't let them pile up. Because either if you haven't fixed it now, you're not going to. And it's just, it's a cognitive load thing, right? You try and you have all this weight of the defects, and you're supposed to finish the work in this iteration, or if you're working on flow, you're still supposed to finish at some point some stuff, and it's like this thing you're trying to pull behind you, right? So, and you should have seen Jer's face when I said that, because I was teaching a product owner class, and the manager was there, the VP of product development, and she said, I think she gasped. She said, when I said throw it away.
Prateek, you or me? You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
No, you go first. So go. I think because I think you have Johanna beat on that one. The number of years on the backlog thing.
Oh, I do have a 12-year-old story. I do have a 12. Yeah. Because my take on that is always, I never know what's more impressive: the fact that they let the backlog get so big with 12 years worth of stuff, or like you're saying, the fact that they're still maintaining it. Both of those just really kind of blow my mind. But so yes, you are bringing a new dimension. Prateek and I always, I shouldn't say we always, but we mostly talk about aging from a predictability perspective. When something is in progress, why are we letting things age arbitrarily? But this arbitrary aging is just as important even before work starts. You're right, because that is still technically inventory that we're carrying around, that we're caring for, that we're paying cognitive load for sure. And it shouldn't be, it really, and from my perspective, it shouldn't be such a radical notion that, maybe we only want to carry stuff on our backlog for, I don't know, a couple of months, couple of weeks, whatever that is. Because you're right, if it ain't important by now, it ain't never going to be important. So why are we fooling ourselves?
Yeah, and the other side of this is it really work that is not in progress if we are having triage meetings about this stuff? In a way, we're spending time doing analysis on this. We're not. It's not just sitting in a backlog. We're actually working on it. So it really is aging.
That's a good point. Damn it. Yeah, it is absolutely true. So I guess technically, from a predictability point, if somebody were to ask us, when will it be done on this particular defect that's been on, in the backlog for 10 years or whatever, what would we tell them? 10 more years? I don't know. How would you answer that? How would you even begin to answer that? I don't know. So,
right, and I think that's really partly the issue. Partly it's the cognitive load of having to examine this stuff and taking time away from work that would be of more value to customers, to people inside the organization, maybe to software support, right? Whoever does support for your product, I'm sure that if you ask them, they have 10 things that you could fix right now that would make their lives so much better, that their cycle time would go down, the number of irate calls would go down. I mean, all kinds of stuff that would be good for the entire organization. And instead, we have well-meaning managers who are stuck on thinking that we can finish all of this in some way. And that finishing, I like the idea of finishing. I don't like the idea of trying to finish stuff that's even a year old. I just don't get it.
But defects weren't the only thing that you mentioned, right? I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stuff, right?
Yeah, there was this more bigger thing was so much. So I really like the idea of a backlog for the near term that we have defined, and I'm never sure how near the near term is. I will say that in my experience, anything past a month out, probably we're not going to do in that form. We're probably going to choose to solve a different problem. We're probably going to choose a different approach. We're going to get some result once we have shipped or released whatever we have now. We're going to change our minds in some way. So while I might want to say, what I should say, here are the problems that are candidates past the next month or so. And I'm big on rolling wave planning, right? I really love my month-long rolling wave. So plan for the next 2 or 3 weeks, have candidates for the 4th week. As we finish this week, solidify those in the 4th week if we can, and keep going that way. So we always have, 3 weeks to a month of a rolling wave, because that's often enough detail for the development team to look ahead, right? They're not feeling like they get to a certain date or a milestone and they now raise up their heads and say, now what? Give me more work. No, I don't want to do that. But I don't want to make promises, especially to management and to customers, when we're sure we're going to change what we want. That's the problem with all that the large roadmaps and the detailed planning.
Let me put the lens of aging on this. Is the point there to say, what is the age of this committed item from the point of time we committed it? We don't want that to exceed, as in this example, more than 30 days. We don't want any committed thing to age more than 30 days. Is that kind of where you were going with that aging piece of that?
Yeah, because it's more cognitive load. So again, I have another client that really likes their 18-month roadmaps and the detail for next year. Oh my God. I mean, and they do this because they're still focused on yearly planning for their project portfolio, which, the fact that I'm working with them now, this is a good thing, because I'm not big on yearly planning. And well, yearly planning meaning maybe for a quarter, hopefully for 6 weeks, and let's see where we are. Again, the rolling wave business. But they are so intent on commitments from the development teams that I think that they start to lose sight of the problems they want to solve for the customers. And that very narrow focus, if they have all this stuff that's old in the roadmaps or in the project portfolio, they get stuck on a path that does not serve them well.
Yeah, Prateek and I usually, I'm going to put words in Prateek's mouth, and he's just going to agree with me. We probably swing the pendulum too far the other way. We are like huge believers in just in time, just getting it as close as possible to just in time. And sometimes that catches you out. Let's talk about, can we talk about the global supply chain, what's happening right now? But in general, it's that, thinking about the world in a more just-in-time way, I would argue kind of solves some of the problems, that you're talking about. If we embrace the fact that who knows what's going to happen, 18 weeks from now, much less 18 months from now, right? I mean, we have no idea. But to your point, we need to have, as much queued up as possible, ready to go, so we're not necessarily starving, any downstream process. And this is one of the few things, if ever anybody wants to go back and listen to our Little's Law video, this is one of the few places where Little's Law really helps us. And that's this notion of, you get the most predictable flow when the rate at which stuff is coming into your process roughly matches the rate that's going out of your process. So if we know, like you're saying, over the next 30 days, roughly how much stuff is going out of the process, that is the best indicator that we've got in terms of how much stuff we should be planning to come into the process. And anything more than that is waste, right? I mean, just kind of by definition is just waste.
Well, I find it so interesting because I run my business, I suspect, the same way that you folks run yours. I am a totally just-in-time person. I mean, I have pieces of writing. I don't think of them as inventory because I'm happy to kill them, right? If I no longer am interested in that, but I have this notion of these are possibilities of options that I could do. I'm thinking about possibilities, options for the workshops I want to offer next year, but I'm not committed to them. And I think there's a difference in the way I think about aging when I think about options versus commitments.
Yeah. And Johanna, I don't know if you know this, but for several years now, in the Kanban community anyway, we've preferred the term like options over backlog. You rarely hear the term backlog when in the Kanban intelligentsia or lack thereof, depending on who you're talking about. Because of that notion, because so many people associate backlog with two things. Number one, that it's committed to. Hey, it's in our backlog. It's committed to. We're going to do it. And then number two, because it's committed to, it's prioritized. And when you start moving to this just-in-time world that we're talking about, there is no such thing as commitment and prioritization. There's this just-in-time. It's like we now have capacity to do something. So only at that point does it really make sense to start talking about, okay, what should we be doing? Because what is our capacity going to be in 18 months? What is the business landscape going to be like in 18 months? Who would have predicted COVID 18 months in advance? Things like that. So just some I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but that's kind of the preferred terminology, in the Kanban world is options versus backlog. So I'm my heart is leaping for joy because you keep saying options, which is wonderful validation for us.
And also just to kind of similar to how we were talking about defects earlier, when you think about this backlog, quote unquote, which has what is it called, a well-ordered backlog, when new options come in, what are you going to do? You're going to reorder everything? Because think about that cognitive load as well of maintaining the order of 500 things and new things are coming in at all times.
Do we do a bubble sort on that, or what? How do we do that? I don't know.
Merge sort, right?
I don't know. It's like,
well, and that's so one of the things I started to come at this from the project portfolio, right, perspective. And when my clients said the developers aren't getting enough stuff done, I said, don't give them more, or stop what they're doing, right? Let people stop. Call it done, get it off the list, somehow reduce all of the stuff that's in progress, that this whole notion of WIP. So, because that was even before I understood Little Saw. So I didn't know about it. Oh, well. But I mean, it was very clear that if you have fewer things that you have to finish, you are much more likely to finish several things that make more sense, that are more valuable. So it's all about where do you find the value and how do you, well, at least I want you guys to answer this question. How do I help my clients understand the notion of aging? They're much better with WIP, right? They understand that a lot of work in progress is not helping them finish stuff. But I want to help them also understand why aging, especially in the more bigger, right, above the level of a given team, even above the level of the given program, that thinking in terms of commitments for all of this stuff is making everybody crazy because it hangs around for so long.
I don't know if it helps, but I mean, I would start talking about the perishability. If they understand inventory, if they understand the inventory is bad, then I would start talking about the perishability of that inventory. There's an example about Taiichi Ohno that may or may not be true. We don't know. When he was first starting out, that he studied American supermarkets because they were very, very good at inventory control. Because think about it, what would happen to a supermarket, especially back in the 1940s? What would happen to a supermarket that constantly stocked their shelves full of stuff that nobody wanted to buy? sooner or later that stuff would age to the point where it would no longer be useful. And that inventory immediately becomes waste at that point. I don't know if that's an angle that you can take if they're already understanding the inventory side of things. Talk about the perishability of inventory. Maybe that inventory it's a liability. It's not an asset. I don't know, Prateek.
I think there is so much around WIP that people have talked about that it's an easier concept to explain. I think we have really started, at least in our community, talking about aging very recently. So there aren't a lot of examples, aren't a lot of metaphors that we can throw at it. But for me, the closest thing that comes to me is, when do your customers want things? Most of the time, it's now or yesterday. It's not 3 months from now, regardless of what level that item is at. And the absolute precursor to how long it takes us to get stuff done is age. The longer things are sitting in our system, the age eventually becomes cycle time. If the longer things are sitting in our system, the longer things are taking, the longer things will take. That's a Yogi Berraism after a while now here. And that's because our customers want things as quickly as possible. As if we can keep the age of items as low as possible in our system, we will be able to successfully fulfill that promise.
I think perishability is better. I think it's a better metaphor. I'm just saying, just going to throw that out there. I think it's.
I think, and Dan and I have had this conversation of all the flow metrics, WIP, throughput, cycle time, age. Really, if you just paid attention to age, if that's the only thing you paid attention to, the rest of it will just take care of itself. Because the only way to only ways to keep age low are work on fewer things and work on smaller things. That's it. And that will take care of everything else.
Yeah.
I don't know if we answered the question though.
I find that so interesting because we have so many systems based on cost accounting that are anti that. Mm-hmm. And while I have suggested to my clients, they don't need to use cost accounting to manage their processes. They might have to report cost accounting, fine. All of us do that. We're companies, that's what we do, but we don't have to use that to manage. And that's starting to break a bunch of, I'm not sure I should say break brains, but
you could say it.
Certainly break their mental models.
Yeah.
And that's where people are having trouble saying, I sort of understand this, Johanna. And that I bring out my little measures of their decision cycle time, but because that's a measure of aging also, right? That they're stuck trying to decide on something for months and months and months.
This is a whole another session that we might have to have you back to talk about, because you've just hit on something. This is, I don't know, Johanna, have we talked about Dan's theory of corporate dysfunction? Have we talked about this at all?
No, tell me.
My belief is that 80%, maybe more than 80%, greater than 80% of corporate dysfunction can be traced back to its accounting practices. Period. Right. And you're talking about cost accounting. Things like, does this cost need to be capitalized or not? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those types of things. I think it can all be, what is my internal charge rate for, if I have a developer on this team and I want to put them over on this team, and those types of conversations. So that's a completely different topic. But you're actually, and the challenge that I always throw down to Agile is, I believe this is a problem that Agile has never solved and hasn't even attempted to solve. But I think it's kind of the biggest thing out there that really needs to be solved. So we're kind of off on a tangent here, but maybe we should have you back to talk about that, and how people like Eli Goldratt came up with like throughput accounting as a way to try and kind of break through that. There's the beyond budgeting movement that is trying to rescope how we think about budgets and accounting and things like that. Anyway, maybe a teaser for a future episode or several future episodes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Once we start tying that back to value, that's another episode.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we can't know value up front. That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. We can know that for sure. So I mean, I guess long story short, I don't know what more we have to talk about here, but long story short is aging bad, right? I mean, but for humans, aging
People
good.
good, right?
Yeah.
Aging for people good.
Yeah, but,
Humans and dogs.
But for anything that we're working on, you know, as part of our process, whether we think is actively in process, whether as Prateek was suggesting, whether it's implicitly in progress, because it's in a backlog, or as Johanna's saying, it's on a roadmap or whatever. Aging is something I totally agree. It's something that we should be looking at everywhere. You know, what do we say to the people? Let me throw something out there, because I get this all the time. It drives me nuts. I get this all the time. What do we say to people? Is like, well, we don't. I don't care how long it takes. You know, I don't care about predictability. I don't care how long it takes. We've got this strategy that we're going to implement, and you know, whether it takes 1 year or 3 years or whatever, I don't care. You know what? That's just what do we say to those people?
What I have said, actually, I believe it was 3 weeks ago, to a client who actually said that to me. He said, I don't care how long it takes, as long as it gets done. And I said, I know you do. I know you do, because it's on this roadmap. It's in this backlog. You're asking people about it all the time. You're irritating the people who are working on the stuff that needs to happen first. I know you care. And the problem is you care too much. You are impatient for the stuff that needs to happen now. So you are ready. So the organization is ready for the stuff that you say you don't care. So you do care.
Yeah.
He said, well, yeah, I kind of do.
Well, and getting back to the cost accounting thing, once that shows up as a line item on a profit loss statement or something like that, then I guarantee they're going to care too. You know,
as soon as you put it on the roadmap, some customer somewhere cares, because they saw it and they're like, now the other side of that is that's where the next thing I hear is, yeah, it's fine, we'll get it done by October, but it's okay if I start in January, and then I slowly peg away at it to kind of get it done by October. And that's where I am at a loss for words. That's why I go, Dan, you talk to them.
Because if it's a priority, it's a priority, right? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we all know from our own work that the longer something stays and not done, in some kind of insufficient state, the longer it will stay. And I know that's Little's law, and but we know that from experience. We can talk about that with our colleagues and our clients, because they've seen this. Can I tell a story about my husband? Yeah, he's not here. I can tell a story about him. Because you guys are husbands. I bet you have honey-do lists. That's the wife creates a list for the honey to do, preferably on a weekend. Yeah, it's more
like honey now, damn it. Yeah, but yeah, okay.
So I have my honey-do list, and I start my honey-do list on Thursdays, because I know that my husband really does not like to see them when he's just finished a weekend, right? So I know my customer, so I start my list on a Thursday, and one particular week about, I guess 4 or 5 months ago, I said something like, oil the door from the garage into the house, because it was squeaking. And so he instead he took a long bike ride, I think both days. He didn't quite get around to it. Fine. I can give him around to it at some point. So it was on the list for the next weekend, the next week. 3 months later, I believe he was traveling, and I realized that the door from the garage into the house was almost off the hinge. You know how the hinges move up and up and up? Mm-hmm. And luckily my daughter came to visit, and she said to me, do you have a rubber mallet? Yeah. she said, well, you're going to lose the door unless I put the hinge back in. Okay, fine. Funny about that, put the hinge back in, made the squeak go away. It aged, and it aged very badly. It was almost a disaster. Luckily, my daughter rescued me, but because I don't get up on a stool. Vertigo here, right? I don't do that anymore. So, but that was the kind of thing where, because we let it age, and I let it age also, we almost had a very big problem. Because I'm not sure what I would have done. I would have called Naomi, and then I would have freaked out because I don't know. So that's where the more in progress stuff we have, the worse the consequences are. If he had said to me, I'm not going to do that, go find somebody, I would have found a handyman.
Yeah. And that's the fundamental problem with aging is delay begets delay, right? And that's what you're saying. The longer something is delayed, the more likely it is that it's going to be delayed. And all of a sudden we're bringing a whole bunch of things into play that might not otherwise have been, an option, right? Had we fixed the squeak right away, there was no danger of the door falling off its hinge. But now, because we let it age so long, now that's an option, And so that is the problem: is the longer you let something delay, now the universe of possibilities that can arise to really screw us. I don't know what the right word is there.
To let the door fall off the hinge.
Yeah. Becomes that the universe becomes, infinitely bigger. So that's ultimately why aging is so bad, because we can't predict the future. We can't know what's going to happen. We got to control what we can control. And usually one of the things we can control is aging. So if we can control that, why wouldn't we?
Yeah, my wife usually solves the aging of items on a honey-do list problems by using a few choice Spanish words. That usually just fixes the problem. Yeah.
Well, there is something very special about husbands and wives that is different from the workplace.
I cannot use those words at the workplace.
Fear? Are we putting fear in there?
Well, and I think that my example of the door is a little different than the defect tracking system, because we have already learned to live with those problems.
Right.
Those problems are not causing more cascading defects. Yep. Right. Often.
Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Yeah.
And the only way to find out if they are is delete the defects. And if it comes up again, it's still causing a problem. Let's go fix it.
Yeah.
Johanna, last word? You want to?
Okay. Aging, bad, except for people.
And
options,
dogs.
Good. And dogs. Yeah. I can see Nisha back there. Options, good. And I think if I needed to add a third, is how can we possibly make decisions with possibilities, these options in mind, as opposed to long-term commitments, right? Long-term commitments, good for marriage, right? And not so good for solving problems for customers.
Yeah. There you have it. Aging bad. but I mean, yeah, I think so it's just thank you for Johanna for bringing to light. We always talk about aging from a predictability perspective. There's so many other aspects of aging that are that you need to watch out for, that we just have never mentioned before. So hopefully this video has brought some of those things to light. Thank you so much for our favorite guest for being here. Maybe we can talk you into coming back on to talk about some of the cost accounting, corporate dysfunction stuff a little bit later. I think that might be a fun episode too. We'd have to probably have 2 drinks for that one.
Yep.
So for Nisha there in the background, she actually moved. And for Prateek Singh, my name is Daniel Vacanti. I want to say thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode. Good night, everybody.